So let's start about SQL injection. Before we go into SQL injection, let's just get a idea about what is SQL. SQL is a standard language for managing databases, mostly known as relational databases. Its main purpose is to allow users to create, retrieve, update, and delete data, which is also known as CUD operations. SQL works mainly with relational databases such as MySQL, PostgreSQL, and MS SQL. So basically, anytime a web application interacts with a database, it is using SQL under the hood. Mostly, SQL works in uh, under the hood of the website. Now, what is SQL injection? SQL injection is a type of hacking that targets website, mostly web applications. It happens when a user, when mostly in login screens, as we can see, login screens mostly, we'll use there as the login data. I mean, the credentials of the web application are stored in an SQL data. By using the, by taking that as an advantage, we proceed with SQL injection. Think as it of like, imagine that ask for your name. Instead of typing your name, you give it a SQL command and tell the database to fetch the data that should not be accessed by you. That's how dangerous SQL injection going to be. How SQL injection works. Let's see how SQL injection works actually with a simple example. Normally, when you log in and type something like your name or John Doe as a username, the website will create a query as shown here. An SQL query will be created in the backend of the application, whereas attacker try to manipulate that with a another SQL query, saying that saying to the database that 1 is equal to 1. So it's a true statement. So sometimes if we are not properly configured, it will pass the data, and whereas it will select the username and forward it back. Then if the website is not secure, it might put this straight into SQL like this. And what will happen is or one-on-one is always true. So it tricks the database. It tells the data, the last two slashes tells the database to ignore the rest of the query. As a result, the attacker can log in without a valid user name or password. So even though it looks simple, the trick can give it can be full of surprises to the system if it is not configured properly. Types of SQL injection. There are few different types of SQL injection, depends on how attacker interacts with the system. The first type of SQL injection is in-band SQL injection. This is more straightforward. Attacker sends a malicious command and database sends results directly back to him. For example, error message and data might show up in the page, giving away useful information. The second type is blind SQL injection. Here, the attacker does not see any direct results. In the blind SQL injection, there are mostly two types: Boolean based, where attacker asks yes or no questions. For example, they might ask if the first letter of username is A and see if the page changes or reacts differently. These Boolean based SQL injection mostly uses different type of tools also. Whereas time based, where attacker asks the database to pause if something is true. For instance, if the first letter is A, it will stall sometime, and the page loads slowly. Then know the answer if it is yes or no. Even if there is even if there is no result, the attacker can uh, learn a lot by watching this. Impact of SQL injection. Some people say that SQL injection is just a technical issue. But in reality, it is very serious. It has very serious consequences in the real world. Here are some things that happens in the real world due to SQL injection. Data theft. SQL due to SQL injection, if databases are not configured properly, we may lose our secret information. I mean, if not only usernames and password, in any personal information, personal identifiable information, whereas we call as PII, such as credit card numbers, passport numbers, etc. Uh, to the data theft. Delete or change data. Think as it like you wrote an exam of some competitive exam, and someone modifies that exam, mm, making your rank lower. Something like that can happen. Login bypass. Accessing the accounts without knowing the password, even admin's account, so that they can do much more damage than they normally can. Server control. In some advanced cases, they can actually take control of the server and run databases, and they might even uh, change the data or disrupt the entire system by taking control of the server. Website defacement. This is the change of color of the website. For example, if you are logging into Cisco, they might change the website total color of the website to black and white, or change the Cisco name to another name, so that it will be shameful to the owner of the website or the company who is managing the website. These are some of the impacts due to SQL injection. Let's look in some real world consequences of SQL injection. It is quite damaging in the real world. Some of the biggest data breaches in the history happened due to SQL injection. Uh, as such, OWASP, which normally gives the ratings to the uh, amount of vulnerabilities around the world, placed it in third position for nearly 20 years continuously. It's that big of a security breach, security vulnerability that we are talking about. For example, companies like Sony, Heartland Payments, and TalkTalk, multiple companies as the follows, were taken down. I mean, their systems were taken down due to SQL injection. What was stolen in this means name, personal identifiable information such as names, passwords of emails, credit card infos, and bank details, which can be mostly sold in black market, or they can use them to ransom, make ransoms or any other things. I mean, I'm saying this. What does it matter to our which we are? If suppose our customer data is gone, I mean, as a company, we manage multiple customers' data. Once that customer data is leaked, it will damage the reputation of our company, and we might face legal troubles and financial troubles as such follows. How to detect SQL injection? So we can find SQL injection on our website or application. One of the ways is to test the input fields like login boxes, search bars, or contact forms by entering characters such as uh, colon, semicolon, or double quotation marks or single quotation marks, etc., to see whether the apps react or not, or while coding, to make securely code to avoid these things when there is any field of data entry. We can use tools such as PubSuite, SQL Map, or browser plugins to check whether there is any vulnerability in our code, uh, and watch for error messages. Most websites show error messages that this is the problem. So I mean, whether username is correct or username is correct and password is wrong, something like that. I mean, let's suppose there is a username and there is a password. If we enter correctly the username and wrong password, if the if the error message showed that the username is correct and password is wrong, the attacker might know that we are using correct username, but we are using wrong password. This may lead to the leakage of data. Preventing SQL injection, the best defense. The best way to stop SQL injection is to use parameterized queries, also called as prepared statements. Think of think of it like filling out a form with specific blanks. You tell database exactly where the data goes, and so it never mistakes user input for code. This stops attacker from sneaking in the commands, which I will show you in a bit. For example, instead of building a query by joining the strings together, you can pass the user input as separate safe values. Besides that, it is important to do input validation when we are testing. Whether check if the data is data that user matches what you are expecting. Suppose if there is a email field, we should always check whether the email is, I mean, only the verified email format should be passed in. You should not expect some other special characters that should not be validated when that data is entering. Finally, following the principle of least privilege, that means giving your database users only permission that absolutely needed, never full, never full control. So when we are giving backend controls, the least amount of privileges need to be given to the user. Together with these steps and many more, strong defenses against the SQL injection can be created. Other important defenses. In addition to using prepared SQL statements and input validation, there are other important ways to protect your application from SQL injection. First, error handling is a key. Don't show detailed database errors, de- error messages to users, because these messages can give attackers what's going on in the system. Second, consider using WAFs, I mean web application firewalls. These will guard these will guard up to a certain extent and know the pattern of the attackers, and will, if there is an active I mean suppose there is an active web application firewalls, they might even give you logs so that you can check how frequently the attacks are happening, or when is the time attacks, how the attacks are happening. Regularly update your application or firewalls, plugins, etc. that come with the application. Third-party applications, make audits about any third-party plugins or microservices that you are using. Everything. Finally, when we are developing, we should train ourselves and think of ourselves as an attacker, so that and code the program so that SQL injection can be prevented. Awareness is one of the best defenses. Combining these practices with good coding techniques will help our applications safe. Now I'll I'll show you a demo of how it works. SQL injection works. This is a test site. Uh, it, it is a test site created by IBM just for the practice of testing. I suggest not to perform this kind of testing any other where it might lead to legal considerations. This is a banking application known as Altero Mutual, where login and credential, as any other bank, it is asking for login credentials. So I'm trying to mislead it by giving a SQL injection that we should not give. Actually, we should give a username and password, but I don't know the username and password. So what I will do is uh, I will give a SQL. I mean, I will trick the database.
So Revan,
Like
first, can you log in with your user ID and password?
actually, sir, this I don't know the user ID and password of this, sir. Actually,
Okay, good. Great. Yeah, carry on, carry on. That's good.
uh, uh, generally what we do is in database we store the passwords and usernames in the table. So we are tricking the database to retrieve the data without, I mean, we don't know the data, but we are tricking the database. I will show you live demo now. Here what I did is first I made a statement that one is equal to one, so that database will pass that statement as true, and whatever comes after that I made it as a comment, so that whatever comes after that it will not take it into consideration. Now password, I'm just giving a dummy password which is not a correct password. So I don't know the either username or password. If the database is not configured properly, when we click login, it will show that it is the, I mean, it is the vulnerability can be found. As you can see, we got into the account which we should not have happened to. And before, in previous slides I also mentioned that when developing the application we should not show any uh, syntax errors. I will also show that to you actually. See, like this, we are sorry, but login and password are not found in the system. That means we are not, I mean, this type of syntaxes we should not show actually. uh, what we should show in generally what is preferred is say that these are not correct credentials, no, like that. I mean, we should not specify which one is correct and which one is wrong in that. That closes our live demo. Now up to conclusion. To wrap up this SQL injection, it is a very dangerous attack that can seriously damage. But the good news is it can be completely preventable with some steps and measures. The most important thing to remember is to always use parameterized queries when working with databases. But prevention does not stop there. Combining secure coding with strong security practices like input validations, these privileges, and regular updates. Regular updates are key to keeping the data safe. We should always make audits when maintaining a website. Continuous audits in a period of time will keep us informed, and we need to stay informed about the vulnerabilities that are out there. Stay vigilant and build secure applications. We need to improve our knowledge from time to time about the how the internet vulnerabilities are maturing and functioning. With this, my presentation comes to end. Thank you for time.